Welcome to Shul.com. There is a very interesting Gemara on Masechet Kiddushin, Daf Pei Bet Amud Aleph. The Gemara is Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo. Hachamarim Ruban Reshaim V'Hagemalin Ruban Kesherin Hasapanin Ruban Hasidim Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam V'Hakasher SheBatabachim Shutofo Shel Amalek. It's a very interesting ma'amar of Rabbi Yehuda, but today I want to focus on Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam. The Gemara says the best of the doctors are going to Gehinam, or what you might define as hell. So the question is, why or how so? So I'm going to give you today a lot of different reasons. They don't all agree with each other, but they're extremely interesting. So let's take a look. First, how is a doctor allowed to heal a human being? If God already decreed that somebody is not going to be healthy or strong, why is he allowed to go out of his way in order to heal this person? So it's actually found in Masechet Berachot Daf Samech Amud Aleph. Taneh debe Rabbi Ishmael v'rapo yirapeh. They take the pasuk in the Torah in Shemot Kaf Aleph Dash Yutet. Mikan shenitna reshut lerofe lerapot. That the Torah gave us a miforash pasuk that allowed human beings to heal when a person is not feeling well. So therefore, why would a doctor who has this permission therefore go to Gehinam? Doesn't make sense. So let's look at Rashi. Rashi actually gives us 4 different reasons. The first one, he says, Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam eno yare minacholi umahalo ma'achal biriim. So what does he say? He says the doctor himself, he loses his Yirat Shamayim over time because he starts to learn the system of medicine, of health, nutrition, food, and he feeds himself properly. He's not fearful of God in the sense that he believes in the process and in himself and his education that it's working for him. And he's got a lot of experience, and he says, or at least he thinks, that because he has this knowledge and he eats properly and he has good nutrition and exercise, then he's going to be okay, and he loses a big portion of emunah that goes to people that don't have that knowledge. Number 2, ve'enu mishaber libo lamakom, and he therefore doesn't break his heart in front of God, the makom, when he's praying and when he's asking to be healed. Upe'amim shehoreg nefashot. It gives you a third reason. He tells you that he's going to end up killing people. Just by default, he's in a business that is a very risky business. It's giving medicine, shots, dealing with people. You know, the human being is the most complicated machine on earth. There is no more complicated machine than the human body. And chances are, if he's going to be healing them, he might fall into a situation where he improperly heals them, and a soul or a person may have to leave the world because of that. Next one, he says, "Ve'yesh be'yado lerapot he'ani ve'eno merapeh." Says the fourth reason, he says that, he doesn't heal people that don't pay. The first question in the United States when you call any doctor is, what is your insurance? And the moment that you tell them you don't have insurance or something of that nature, suddenly the doctor's not available. You have a 4-month waiting, or the price is outrageous. And so Rashi is telling you, yeah, God allowed you to heal if you're that person who he granted that knowledge, that interest in the subject. But if a poor person that needs your help is coming to you and he cannot afford it, or the fees are just outrageous, and you don't heal him, that's a direct ticket to Gehinam, because you went into a field of business that the Torah allowed you to heal. But if someone can't afford it, that's risky. Now, of course, you're going to say, how does he run his business? Okay, there's a lot of details to this, but here we're learning Rashi. He brings down also in here the Igrot Moshe in Yoreh Da'ah Chelek Gimel Siman Lamed Vav in regards to this as well. Let's look further. He says here in the next reason that in Masechet Pesachim Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph, it says that Hizkiah HaMelech did many things that the rabbis praised him for, some things the rabbis didn't praise him for. One of the things is Sheganav Sefer Refuot, that he buried the book of the Refuot. There was a book that gave all the directions for pretty much any problem that existed in the human body, what to do, what to eat, how to pray, and all the processes of how to heal a person. That book called Sefer Refuot was nignaz by Hizkiah HaMelech. והודו לו חכמים על כך. The rabbis were very proud of him that he did that. או פירש רש"י, in דיבור המתחיל וגנז, לפי שלא היה ליבם נכנע על חולאים, אלא מתרפים מיד. They were just get healed right away with this book, and they didn't put their heart towards God, and therefore they were very happy that Hizkiah HaMelech did this. Let's take a look. The Meiri brings down Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam mipnei shekama pa'amim shovech damim mipnei hayush. He brings another reason. He says that the doctors was granted permission from the Torah, verapo yirapeh. If you can heal, you have that permission. You have no permission to take away hope from mankind. And many doctors took this to the next level, where they tell the person, looks like you have 6 months, looks like you have a year, looks like it's over, looks like there's no hope. That was never granted to the doctor. That was never permitted. The doctor was permitted to heal. The moment that the doctor starts to tell any patient, hey, I think that you might live this or that, he's violating and he's kind of thinking himself like a god. And that's the problem, according to the Meiri. He says, number 2, and you're not using the tools that were given to you to heal when you are giving yeush and hopelessness to people. He says, number 3, another reason. He says that the doctor, sometimes he has no idea how to solve the problem. But it's not that simple for a doctor with a lot of accolades and a lot of plaques and a lot of suffixes and prefixes in his name to go and now tell a patient, hey, I have no idea what's going on here. It's very humbling, and sometimes the doctors suck it up and instead will give medicines, or they'll tell patients, hey, maybe it's this, try this. I know of many cases where doctors were just outright wrong completely on diagnoses that they gave people. Sometimes they've killed people, and sometimes they were not shy to just say, hey, listen, I don't even know what's going on here. So that's another problem that's brought down, and that is the Meiri. In the book Yad Rama, he says, "Shelifamim en medachdekim berefuah hacholeh." He says sometimes they hear part of the case and the doctor's zoned out. I've seen this myself many times, where you go to a doctor's office, he's on the computer in the room, he's just not there. You see, you're talking to him, it's like you're talking to a wall. He's not listening, he's not paying attention, and he's not medakdik. He's not asking, and you know that because he's not asking you the questions that you might think he should ask in order for him to understand better. And therefore, because he's not medakdik and he's not detailing all of the proper questions, he's not able to heal the person. And so he says further, besides that they're not medakdik and properly asking the right questions or doing the right test in order the person, they have another problem. They extend the disease to the individual in order to increase their salary. Look, if everybody was healthy, they're out of business. I have a good friend who's a doctor. He runs a hospital here in Miami, and he told me, we joke about this all the time, but he told me, he's like, look, if everybody ate one meal a day and they start to just eat healthy, whatever they think is healthy, but for the most part, eat 1 meal a day healthy and just exercise for 30 minutes. If everybody did that, he said he would be out of business. And he's a doctor who's very, very honest with me. He's like, look, nobody eats healthy, nobody cares. He goes, I have people that are alcoholics, they come in there, they have, different types of addictions, and he literally is telling them that if they drink again, they may not make it because they've gone so far, their liver, things like that, and they don't care. And so he was honest with me. But many doctors are not looking for a one-time customer to come in. They want clients. They want long-term clients. They want clients that are going to be able to come and constantly come back and ask for more medication and things like that. And that, unfortunately, leads the doctor on a ticket to Gehinam, because that's not what he was granted for. This was not intended for you to go into business. You were intended and granted this position to heal people and bring them more life. And so that's another one. Now, Haramban Nachmani brings down in the book Torat Ha'adam, Shar HaMichush Inyan HaSakana. I'll read it in Hebrew and we'll translate it. Ve'en lecha berefuot ela safek sakana. He said the entire business of healing people is safek sakana. He's literally putting himself in danger every time, the doctor. He goes, sometimes you give medicine to one guy, healed him, and the other guy killed him. וזו שאמרו טוב שברופאים לגיהינם, לגנות דרכם של רופאים בפשיעות וזדונות שלהם נאמר, אבל לא שיהיה חשש איסור בדבר. אלא מי הוא דווקא בבקיא ויודע בחוכמה ובמלאכה זו. He goes, but if somebody's a real expert, he's a specialist. He's spent 20 years in one field, he knows the stuff. She'em sham gadol mimenu, and he really knows the stuff. He's a l'shem shamayim doctor. Aval kol she'eno yodea betiv melacha zu. But if there's another doctor, he's a couple years in, just finished residency, he doesn't really know his stuff, and he's trying to get clients with things that are serious. And he knows, I'm not that good. I really don't know this well enough, and he's not humble enough to go tell the patient, hey, why don't you go to somebody else, or why don't you let me go find out, and he decides to take it upon himself. You're not supposed to be a doctor then in that field. And if you know there's a better doctor, don't get involved at all in that field, or work your way up to get to that field of knowledge, because you being mit'asik in that field, you literally might be killing people. He goes, of course, and when it comes to laws and doing horaot, different types of being like lifsop halacha. He goes, how are you, dealing with a safek life when there's one's bigger? He goes, and if he's the one who's a doctor, and he knows himself, everyone has to be honest with themselves, because God knows your thoughts. That's one of the ikarim, the 13 ikarim of Rambam. So he knows your thoughts. So, the judgment, of course, today is all based on the thoughts of man, not just on their actions. And so, because of that, God knows what you're really thinking. God knows if you knew that you yourself were knowledgeable enough to deal with that. And then he brings out the shoot tashpitz, and furthermore, the Maharsha on this says, Yesh lefaresh, tov SheBaRofim, dehainu shemachzik atzmo letov v'lemumche SheBaRofim ve'she'en kamau. Another reason. Says this doctor, he's the tov SheBaRofim. He thinks himself that he is the gadol hador in that field. And he don't ask anyone for anything. He's not educating himself constantly on the journals, the medical journals, and the case studies. And he got to the point where he's 65 years old. He's got a great client list. People are coming. And he thinks he's the tov SheBaRofim. He said, I understand it. I know this. I'm doing this for 20 years. He answers questions before the patient even asks properly. V'somech biyoter al macha'ato. And he says here, mumchiyato, mitoch gavato, because of his arrogance, he relies only on himself. And he's wrong. And sometimes he kills them in the medicine that he gives them. He has to discuss sometimes with other doctors just to double check. Hey, what do you think of this? I got this case. What do you think if this should be the right way or whatnot? And this is brought down also in the Sefer Tiferet Yisrael. He wrote there, Nir'eli, the en ma'amar se gnai l'rofeh. He says, this is not a gnai to the rofeh. Rak shevach harofeh hamumche. He goes, this is only a shevach. So he actually had a different look on this tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam. He's saying it's a positive. The melo ka'amar kasher SheBaRofim doesn't say the kasher of the rofim, it says the tov of the rofim, kebasefa, because in the end of the Gemara it said kasher shebatabachim shutofo shel Amalek. The best of the butchers is a partner of Amalek. We're not going to go into that ma'amar today, but he says it didn't say kasher barofim, it said tov SheBaRofim, and you have to be medayek on the words of the Gemara. So let's see, it says kebasefa betabachim shma mina shehatov hazeh en kavanto kasher. When it says he's a good doctor, the good of the doctors, doesn't mean he was the kasher of the doctors. Rak mi shechoshev et atzmo shehu hamumche yoter tov SheBaRofim hu me'utad LeGehinam. Because only those who thinks he is the best of the doctors, he's the one who would go to Gehinam. So he agrees with the previous ma'amar of the Maharsha, that he thinks he's the best and he doesn't ask from his friends, other doctors, advice. That in his mouth and by his pen, his quill, he can pretty much, extend and kill a person. Writing the wrong prescription can kill a person, or giving him a medicine that mixes with certain things in the person's body or other medications can kill him. And he doesn't even think in his mind that he can make a mistake. ואינו חושש לעיין היטב בספרי הרפואות קודם שייתן לחולה סמי רפואה וראה שלא אמר התנא שהוא רשע או יבוא לגיהינם רק אמר סתמה לגיהינם. So he says here, he's not saying that all doctors are this. He didn't say rasha, that they all go to Gehinam. He's saying specifically Tov SheBaRofim. This doctor thinks that he's the best, I don't ask for people advice. That type of doctor is Gehinam. But what he's saying here, what I understand from the Tiferet Yisrael, is that the remaining doctors, if they don't have this feeling, they're all going to Gan Eden because they're doing a great thing. They're Hakarat HaTov. He says, so as long as you're not Tov SheBaRofim, because you're going to Gan Eden. He said, that's why I didn't say Kasher SheBaRofim. Doesn't mean kasher means it's the best and the most kosher. He said, no. He says, as long as you're not the arrogant doctor who thinks he knows everything and you're willing to learn more and educate yourself, then perfect. Then that's great. And let's take a look further. The last part of Rashi was meaning he has the ability to heal a patient, but he doesn't heal them because of money, or he doesn't the ani, the poor person that came to him, can't afford it. He has to heal people if they are poor, even if they don't have any money. And he brings down the shoot of Teshuvah Me'ahava, that he brings down Mishu Ani, ve'en yado masiged l'shalem l'rofeh, and he doesn't have money to pay. And the doctor doesn't want to go to that poor man. This was at the time where you had one doctor per city. Today you have a city of doctors per person. That's the difference of today. Back in the day, there was one doctor per town. And this doctor, he didn't want to go to the patient. He used to do house calls. So he says the Bet Din, it seems to me, would have to beat the doctor physically when they have this power. Obviously, probably not today or in the United States. But if that power is granted to the Beit Din in some form of a theocracy, a theocratic government, he could go beat the doctor and say, hey, doctor, you're a doctor, and if that poor man doesn't have ability, you have to heal him and figure out a way that he's got to be healthy too, not just when rich people or people that have insurance can come. Shepasak Harama, he brings down, and Yodra Siman Resh Samech Aleph, the Beit Din Kofin Me'achar She'en She'achar She'yamul Hu Din Hacha. Hu Din Hacha, he says, just like a person, if a mohel doesn't want to, if someone doesn't want to pay to have a mohel in order to do Brit Milah for the baby, they would do the same thing. Okay, let's take a look at the last piece here. And he brings this very nice piece at the end from a rabbi who was also a rofeh. His name is Rabbi Shlomo ibn Varga, or maybe Warga. He was Megidolei Sfarad, and he had an argument with the Pope, the Afifior. So take a look. And the Pope seemingly found this Gemara, and he wanted this doctor, rabbi, to explain it to him. And he wrote the whole argument in the book Shevet Mehuda. Let's take a look. I'll read it and explain. Ana had Levi, that's Rabbi Shlomo ibn Varga. She'amar tov shebatabachim shutofo shel Amalek. Here it says tov shebatabachim. It's actually kasher shebatabachim shutofo shel Amalek in our Gemara. It says Ratzeh lomar shehu yeh achzari kemo Amalek ala Yehudim. She'im lo chen lo yaharog behema leolam. So he was talking about the other ma'amad. It says kasher shebatabachim shutofo shel Amalek. He goes, why is that he's the partner of Amalek if he's a good butcher? He said, because just like Amalek, Yimach Shema Mo V'zichro, wanted to just kill Jewish people with no mercy, that's a good butcher. He's got to be that way, otherwise he ain't going to have any meat supply. He's got to have that form of lack of mercy on animals in order to be in business. So, but the Pope was really talking to him about the second Ma'amar. V'tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam Ratzeh lomar shir'eh le'olam Gehinam patuach lefanav. So he explained, Rabbi Shlomo ibn Varga, to the Pope, that a good doctor has to always think of Gehinam is open right in front of him. Ve'im yahareg ha'ish sha'refu al yado ובזה יעיינו ויעשו חריצות הראוי והטוב הוא כאשר יחשבו שהם עתידים לירש גיהינם אם לא יקבלו כראוי במחשבה ועיון. He's saying that a good doctor has to always think of Gehinam opened in front of him, and by doing that he'll make the right decision. So it says Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam, not that they're going to Gehinam, is that they always have Gehinam opened in front of them a good doctor, he always thinks of Gehinam in front of him in order to make the right decision, in order to properly heal people. I actually found another paper, another piece from Dr. Shmuel Kotek. Very interesting. He says a couple things. Yesh litzayin she'afilu hanusim tiplu banose. He goes, even the Christians had a whole discussion on this item of doctors. And he brings in here Schenkel and Buxtorf. And he says something on this. In the 17th century, he wrote, in the 18th century, 1700s, he wrote something interesting. And what these Christians research came up from this, and there's probably a lot of truth to what this is that he says the minds of the Jewish people were always anti-doctors. We are believers in God. And from the time of the Gemara, is Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam, that was the motto. It was not a positive thing to go be a doctor, because it kind of Jewish people are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. We are believers. And he said maybe other nations of the world that was a different field. And today, obviously, it's for sure a different feeling about this. He goes, but 2,500 years ago and 2,000 years ago, he goes, Jews and doctors, they didn't go together. Jews liked Talmidei Chachamim, they liked going to the Beit HaMikdash to Kohen Gadol, they liked going to Mikubalim, getting brachot from rabbis, praying by Kibbutz Hadigim. That was, doctors to them were people that were playing with some form of magic. Even if the Torah allowed it, it wasn't something that the Jews were for. The Jews I'll go to my God before I go to a doctor. That was what their research came. Misad Sheni Kedai Letzayin Shebishnat 1436 Kavah HaKesar Sigismund of Luxembourg. So he says here there was the Holy Roman Emperor. His name was Sigismund of Luxembourg. He lived from 1368 to 1437. In 1436, it's kind of interesting, a year before he died, he made a proclamation. He was the monarch, he was the king of Hungary and Croatia, of Germany, and he was the last male of the House of Luxembourg. Afterwards, it was over, the House of Luxembourg. But he made a thing that Shebechol Ayara Shebegermania Yitmana Rufe Siburi Asher Yitapel Be'aniyim Behinam. He says that in every city in Germany, he made what's called Medicaid, that anyone who didn't have money or couldn't afford will automatically get free health care. And that was what he did. A year later, seemingly he died or was killed. I don't know. I didn't look up the rest of it, but he wasn't around a year later. So it looks like some doctors that weren't too proud or happy about that. But that was what he did. He wanted to do a reform where they have it. And the United States has that today, where people can afford medicine to a certain extent. They can get some help. And let's take a look at the thing. He says, and he said from this, he goes, because of that, because they don't take care of poor people, he goes, that could be one of the understandings as to why they would go to Gehinam, is because they're doing it for a business. I put together a couple of other reasons, and Rabbi Mansour had a great reason that he brought down. I remember this from years ago. He said, Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam. What does that mean? He says, Tov. He goes, first, there's 3 times a day we do Amidah on a regular day. He goes, and in the Amidah we call it Shmona Aseret. Obviously today it's 19 Berachot because we added the Lamanim and the Malshinim for the Mosinim. But it's called Shmona Aseret. He goes, but a doctor, you see, if the doctor has Kavanah in the Beracha of Refa'enu Hashem v'Nerafeh, then he's not going to have too many clients come into him that day. So what happens is, Tov SheBaRofim, this doctor, he skips over that Refa'enu. So instead of his 18 Berachot Amidah, Rabbi Mansour said that doctor, he's doing 17 Berachot in the Amidah. He's Tov SheBaRofim. He goes, that doctor, he's going to Gehinam right away. He goes, because your job was to heal people. Your job was not to stop praying that people get healed. And he goes, if you're taking that upon yourself, he goes, then Gehinam is on the way. Next thing, Rabbi Mansour said an even better reason. He says, Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam, he was saying that's a positive thing. Well, why is it positive? He goes, because if I know doctors, I have a couple of friends, I went to Yeshiva of Flatbush High School, I would probably say 50% of my grade became either a doctor or a lawyer. But you know what I noticed about all of them? Is that it's a real Gehinam to be a doctor. Yeah, maybe there's some prestige, has a good income, but it's a tough job. It's years of learning, years of residency, dealing with patients, hours, non-stop thinking about sick people, it's unfortunately, it's a Gehinam. I understand some people might like it, some people choose it, but they're literally putting themselves in a hell on earth. And they're not dealing with perfumes and selling Rolex watches where everyone comes in, my wife is her birthday, let me buy her a gift, and every single sale is a be'ah, that the guy's happy. Everyone that comes in has another bigger problem, and all his day is filled with this. And so Rabbi Mansur says, Tov SheBaRofim LeGehinam, because he has a Gehinam in this world, but I assure you, if he's doing it for good kavanot, he's going straight to Gan Eden. The Gemara was telling you that the best of the doctors, he's so Leshem Shamayim that he feels a Gehinam in this world because of what he has to do and take care of, but he's going straight to Gan Eden. And we explained the other one of the Yeush, that a doctor is not supposed to take away tikva. He's a healer, he's not a prophet, he's not supposed to tell people otherwise. And just like we say, I found that one more reason. He said that why would the Tov SheBaRofim go to Gehinam? He said because he thinks himself as the Tov. And in the Jewish religion, the one who succeeds the most, we call him a Talmid Hacham. What does that mean? He's not just a Hacham, a wise person. He's the Talmid Hacham. When you reach the highest level, you become a student Hacham. Because that's what it says in the Mishnah Avot, Mikol Melamdai Hiskalti. From all of my different students, I learned. Because that's a real Talmid Hacham. He knows that when you're going to put minds together, you're going to end up learning much more. And let's take a look. There's actually one more reason. This is brought down by the Hida. And the good question is, where is our Hakarat HaTov for these doctors? They work so hard, they heal people, they do good, they explain, and okay, they're not perfect, but what about Hakarat HaTov? Hida said, there's a completely different interpretation on this Gemara. Completely different. He said, take a look. He goes, it says in Masechet Avot, in the Mishnah Avot, Gimel Dashud Ad, Rabbi Elazar HaModai Omer. Rabbi Elazar HaModai, that was the uncle of Bar Kochva. Bar Kochva killed him. After he killed him, they ended up calling him Bar Koziba. Okay, but that's for a different class. Rabbi Elazar HaModai Omer, HaMechalel et HaKodashim, והמבזה את המועדות, והמפר בריתו של אברהם אבינו, והמלבין פני חברו ברבים, והמגלה פנים בתורה, אף על פי שיש בידו מעשים טובים, אין לו חלק לעולם הבא. So what's Rabbi Elazar HaModai telling us? He says that someone is that מלבין פני חברו ברבים, כאילו שופך דמים, אין לו חלק לעולם הבא. And he goes, that is also found in Baba Metziah Noach Amud Bet. Kol malbin penei chavro barabim ki'ilu shofech damim. He goes, so the Hida is saying that Tov SheBaRofim the Gehinam, he goes, you know who's the best doctor? He goes, the guy who doesn't use any scalpel or any medicine to someone who's sick, but he goes to a regular Jew and he embarrasses him in public and he makes his whole face go from red to white, and he embarrasses him and hurts his feelings in front of people. He goes, that guy, he's the best doctor. Why? Because by doing that, he ends up cleaning the individual from all his avonot, hata'im, and pisha'im, and keeping him completely clean. He ends up taking all the avonot of the guy back to the one he made fun of, back to the one who was making fun of. And he says, the Hida, this is the best of the doctors. He goes, not a doctor in the sense that you understand. He says, Tov SheBaRofim, a guy, who's the best guy to clean someone from his avonot? The guy who goes around and he's making fun of people. But he goes, at the end of the day, that doctor, even though he healed people from all their hata'im, avonot, and pisha'im through the bizayon and embarrassment that they did in public, unfortunately, that type of doctor, he's going to get Gehinam. So we end with this to see that there are alternatives to understanding this Gemara, and Bezat Hashem, you enjoyed it. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen v'amen.